A lot of things. This is the first time I've actually watched it through with a full way through with an audience in its finished stage, and so it was quite fitting that I watch it here at home with family and friends, and yeah, it feels really good to be able to share it with everybody. So.
So the story of John Bishop is engaging, as we've just seen, but what was it about that story when you first heard about it that you thought, I'm going to be living with this for a couple of years probably, maybe longer, as we pull this together? What made you want to spend that kind of time to tell this story?
Well, you don't really think about it that way. I mean, I didn't. You kind of think, oh, this is a great idea, and then it becomes 7 years, and it goes through a lot of different iterations. And I met John Bishop on a canal boat in Amsterdam having lunch, through a friend, and my friend said, John, why don't you tell Will how you became a stand-up? And he told me that his marriage was falling apart. And he stumbled into a pub outside of Manchester, England, and he didn't want to pay the cover. So he put his name down. That's true. And he went in, and it was Monday, and it was the day he dropped his kids off at his ex's house. And he found some relief doing that and actually was able to talk about what was going on in his life in front of a room full of strangers for the first time. And so he kept going back and looking forward to it. I found that very compelling, that he was able to really connect with himself through doing this thing. And it's also true that his wife, eventually he got called to do a bigger set, like on a Friday night, and that she came in with some new friends and saw him on stage.
I thought I was going to have to leave the room when I first saw that scene, and the look on Laura Dern's face.
I know, yeah.
Man.
And it's such those parts of it seem so improbable. If we had written it, people would have called bullshit.
Yeah.
And yet those are the sort of the tenets of it. And so I found it he told me this story, and I went back to work. I was working in Europe at the time, and it just stayed with me. And then I went back to Los Angeles, and I was like, God, and I just, something about this story. And I ended up reaching out to him, and I said, would you let us take a crack at writing this story on your life? At least the basic tenets of it.
Was it an immediate yes from him?
No. He said, I'll think about it, and I said, well, I'll come over to London and let's talk about it. And so Mark Chaplin and I took him out for lunch. We wined him and dined him. Not true. We talked to him over the course of about a week and sat in a hotel room, and he told us his story and told us his story and told us his story. And we started writing it. Now, we wrote that first draft basically a year later, after we pitched it and sold it, and we worked on it for a while. And we were kind of at an impasse. COVID happened, a lot of things in the world happened, and everything kind of got shifted around. And the deal fell through at Focus, which was Universal, and we were kind of in no man's land. And Searchlight, Katie Goodson Thomas at Searchlight in the UK called us and said, you guys came in and pitched that, and that story stuck with me, and I want to do it. Are you guys still interested? And we're like, yeah, of course. We're like getting busy because we hadn't been working on it. And as we were working on it, I thought, I was with Bradley, who's a old friend of mine of 25 years, and he was working on Maestro at the time, and I said, would you take a look at this? I just wanted free notes from him. And he called me, it's true, and he called me a week later, and he said, I got to direct this thing, and I want to rewrite it. And I think where it's at is good, but I think where we could go could be here. And I think, I want you to do this.
I think there's some really interesting choices in the screenwriting here. The first one that grabbed me straight away from seeing this was starting with the divorce, not the messy lead up to the divorce. Tell me about that decision, because did you ever feel like, well, we have to show some of the bad stuff, or did you just think people will vibe it, they'll get it?
I think that we understand that audiences are smarter than you give them credit for, and that people can follow a story. And we've seen that. We didn't need to see the arguments. We didn't need to. There were various stages of development when we were first kind of beating this story out, where we thought about doing that. We also, things we thought about were seeing Alex at work. All those things weren't really important to the story we were trying to tell. We wanted to see them, we wanted to drop in on this moment and see them from that moment on. And that was really important to us.
I think people will be surprised to learn that you have never done stand-up before when doing this.
I don't think they'll be that surprised.
Well, you may well. But tell me a little bit about creating the sets that Alex does, because they start off in one place, and then over time he does get better at it, and the jokes are a little more formed and that kind of thing. So tell me a little bit about creating, especially those initial shows that he does, to make sure that they didn't seem too slick and too polished.
Yeah, it was a very narrow target. And we wanted to make sure that we find a guy who is sort of unwittingly stumbled into this situation. What would he say in this moment? He's slightly high, he's had a drink, he's got nothing left to lose, he's alone in the city, he's got nowhere to be. And he makes that decision to go down the stairs. He hears his name, he goes, yeah, that's me, I'll go down. Fuck it. And he goes on stage. He's not a stand-up. What does he say? And the one thing that he says is, for the first time, he says, I'm going through this thing. And then where does that take him? And he gets that, we hopefully get that sense that he gets that relief that first time. And so we didn't want it to feel like, you run the risk. We've all seen things like Seinfeld where the stand-up really mirrors what's going on in the story. We didn't want to see that. We wanted to see it as a reflection of where he's at emotionally, and we want to see him kind of opening up, finding a community, finding a way to communicate. And so that was, we kind of left that to near the end. We had all these sets in place, but it wasn't until we got it on its feet that we really understood it. And I started going and doing stand-up in New York at the Comedy Cellar last year, and I'd go every night for about 6 weeks. I was going 3 times a night. And we go and I'd have them introduce me as Alex Novak, and I go on stage. And
what were people's reaction when you would show up?
Mostly that I've lost my mind. But it was, my instinct as a performer who's been sort of comedy adjacent for a number of years, I think Bradley understood that my instinct would be to go out there and in a moment of quiet, try to make them laugh, do something, rely on my old tricks. And he said one of the first times I went up, and he would say it subsequently almost every time, right as they were calling my name. He was always there with me when I was doing those sets. He would stop me, and he'd say, everything's going on, and he'd say, we're doing something else. We're going in to try to find what this guy does. And so we'd go and I'd do these sets. I'd do the first set, or I'd do the third set. There were about 6 sets that happened throughout. And then during the day, I'd go home, I'd be at home in New York and be writing the stand-up and try to, just trying to track Alex's progression and where he's going and where he is emotionally. And so, yeah, it wasn't hard, it was just a process.
And there's nice little moments that you see in the film. My favorite moments in films are when they don't tell me something that I just see it. And so as Alex starts to get more professional in his presentation and starts to take it a bit more seriously, he's not slightly high and had a drink, and you see him go for that big glass of water afterwards. Yeah. And I thought, that's the guy that's taking this seriously.
Yeah, there were a lot of little moments like that. He, after he's at the birthday party and Balls has kind of told him that he thinks Tess is seeing someone, Alex goes and he's much more confident. He grabs the mic stand. He takes the mic off. Like, these are all little things that we did that we sort of tracked as we went. He has a sort of much more facility with it.
Tell me about doing those stand-up sets and how vulnerable you feel, because it is the most naked you're probably, or one of the times where you're the most naked you're ever going to be.
Except for when I was naked.
Yes. Yeah. But tell me about the vulnerability of that, and tell me about the night where you killed at the Comedy Cellar, went around the corner to the Fat Black Pussycat, did the same set, and you got a much different reaction.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Has anybody here ever done stand-up before? Yeah? up there.
We have
Yeah, it's
one
scary.
stand-up comic in
And
the audience.
well, two that I could see who have done it. Three. Oh boy, now they're really coming out of the woodwork.
They're everywhere.
The first time, you know what? Every time you step out, I have such admiration for what comics can do. It is scary. You're kind of stepping into the void. There's nowhere to hide, and that process for me, even after having been around a long time, was daunting, and it was really really scary. And you know, what's funny is it mirrored what Alex was going through, stepping out into that void and doing that, mirrored what I was going through as an actor, doing something that was a lot different from anything I've done. I was outside my lane, as it were, compared to other things I've done, and I kind of realized halfway through that I was having a similar experience to Alex in a different way as an actor, and it was that to me was the real vulnerability, you know, that Bradley demanded that kind of authenticity and honesty while we were shooting. Everything, Bradley operated most of the film, and he was about a foot in front of me.
Yeah, and he was whispering to you. Right?
He wasn't whispering. He was sometimes, and he was talking to me. And we talked through as we went through, and you know, demanded that honesty. And it was to me, you know, doing that in front of a crew, doing that in front of all these people, that was new for me. And I had this sense of I didn't want to let him down. He's a lifelong friend. Do I have what it takes? I'm 54 and I'm doing this stuff now, and the themes are very heavy, and you bring your own stuff into it. So all of that stuff was intense. To answer your question about bombing, we did a night where on a Saturday night at the Comedy Cellar, went downstairs and kind of wrote some other jokes just to have fun, because it was a big raucous crowd, told some jokes, killed. Came upstairs to those very seats that you see all the comics hanging out at the Comedy Cellar. Liz, who plays herself, who's the manager at the Comedy Cellar, and all those people worked there. Liz said, we killed, we're riding high, and she said, do you want to go around the corner to the Fat Black Pussycat, which is another one of their spaces? And we're like, yeah, of course, we're gonna go over there, riding high, get on stage. Fucking crickets. I mean, not even crickets. I always say, like, I would have killed for a cricket. Just dead silence. And the only laughter I can hear is in the back, Bradley laughing to himself, killing himself, laughing. And you stand there and you're like, can I leave? Or
There's a lot